Imagine a mecha anime, but instead of robots, the reluctant pilots fight using the infrastructure of an entire city, throwing punches with the concrete of city blocks and swinging with the force of skyscrapers and steel beams. And then while you're at it, sprinkle in a little Power Rangers teamwork for good measure. The City We Became is an urban fantasy novel by n.k.jemisin. It's the first book of her series called The Great Cities. I read Jemisin's Broken Earth trilogy a few years ago and it blew me away. These books made her the first author to win the Hugo Award for Best Novel 3 years in a row, as well as the first to win for all three novels in a trilogy. So I was excited to dig into this book the moment I got my hands on it. The City We Became asks questions like, when do cities become large enough to become their own entity, and what would their human avatar even look like? How would they interact with other cities, and how would they interact with neighborhoods within their own borders? It also deals with prejudice, racism, xenophobia, and how all of those things are unfortunately part of the past and present of a dense city. The story is about the city of New York finally maturing enough and waking up. In the grand scheme of things, the United States and New York City are really young. Other cities like Hong Kong and London have already been awake for centuries. So the book opens by introducing us to the city and what it calls the avatar of New York. This is a person that the city has chosen to embody and simultaneously exist as a human on the streets and also as the city itself. We quickly find out that this awakening isn't going smoothly because some other eldritch entity is attacking and trying to stop it. It's customary for the most recently awoken city to travel to and assist the current city waking up, so luckily New York has some guidance and help from the avatar of Sao Paulo. There is an amazing action sequence in which a fight takes place both in the actual city and across a multiverse, using the energy of the city as weapons. Street drummers, train cars, bodegas, all things New York become weaponized. New York is able to fend off this attack, but is left weakened and vulnerable. This is where the story actually begins. All of that was just the introduction to the book, and New York is a special instance of a city waking up because it doesn't just have an avatar for the city itself, it also has 5 avatars for all 5 boroughs: Brooklyn, Manhattan, the Bronx, Queens, and the often forgotten Staten Island. The bulk of the narrative explores the 5 avatars suddenly awakening and just becoming aware that they are the embodiment of a specific borough. As they try to figure out what this new feeling is, they are also drawn to seek each other out. All of this is happening while the city isn't just under attack by small versions of the first Eldritch monster, but it becomes apparent that some entity has also figured out how to attack the soul of the city. They've done this by becoming a high-powered corporate developer and strategically replacing buildings and businesses that have actual character with things like Starbucks on every corner. The main conflict in the story is actually between the boroughs themselves. They know that they need each other and that the city and the lives of everyone in it depends on them working together, but they are also the embodiment of their home borough. That means they can't help but bicker and fight over differences and can't let go of past transgressions. The most extreme of this is Staten Island, though. Throughout the story, Staten Island struggles the most with being considered a piece of New York as a whole and gives the rest of them a lot of trouble. They have to deal with Staten Island while trying to find each other and figure out what's going on, while fighting back against some multi-dimensional being that wants them dead for some reason. Believe it or not, that's just the basic setup of the book, and that's all I'll say so I don't accidentally give too much away. I absolutely love this book, and I wasn't surprised because Jemisin is such a phenomenal writer. She creates such unique and interesting worlds, and she does so while exploring relevant and what I feel are underrepresented themes in the fantasy genre. The diversity in this book is refreshing and amazing. The characters are all mostly people of color and members of the LGBTQ community. None of it feels forced because the nature of a city like New York and a story like this demands that the physical representations of it be diverse like the people who actually exist there. It uses this to explore themes of racism and prejudice, even among the boroughs. Staten Island is the only white avatar, and this causes a lot of problems for our heroes. As one of them said in the story, the other 4 boroughs consistently vote blue while Staten Island votes red every time. The book does a wonderful job of showing through the perspective of the Staten Island avatar how being isolated and raised by a controlling, racist, and manipulative family can morph your worldview. While it doesn't excuse her views and behaviors, we are shown how they came to be. The story also explores how developers and corporations push out natives of a neighborhood and gentrify the area, building cookie-cutter structures that strip the soul and character from a neighborhood. It also explores how this displaces those residents and leaves them with nothing and nowhere to go. I do think that the book dragged a little bit in places. I had to really focus at some points because I was really ready to move on to the next story beat. The world building is fantastic, but I think some of the banter could have been streamlined a little bit. I also felt like the chapters were extremely long, which for me makes it harder to feel like I'm moving along through the story. But these are very minor complaints among nothing but high praise. I really love this book, and I'm definitely going to check out the next one in the series. I thought the world and concepts were so unique, and they were integrated into our real world extremely well. So if you're looking for an urban fantasy book with a diverse cast and the action and drama of a mecha anime, then I would check out The City We Became by N.k.Jemisin.